and were forced to confront 3 very important lessons. Firstly, if you own guns, don't leave them lying around loaded when you throw a party. Secondly, don't invite people to your party with less than 3 brain cells. And thirdly, even if you suspect a gun to be fake, never hold it up to yourself in open fire before you double, triple, and quadruple check with the owner. Treat every gun like it's loaded. Otherwise, at the very least, you may ruin a perfectly good party. And nobody likes a party pooper. Rapid exit. Every once in a while, in the process of accidentally removing themselves from the gene pool in spectacularly embarrassing ways, people actually end up saving lives. For one unlucky man from Somalia, though, saving lives was far from his intention, yet he somehow managed it anyway. The man in question boarded a commercial flight from Abdinati International Airport in Mogadishu, Somalia on February 2nd, 2016.
No further for your beauty gifting this season. I just came home with some...
Prepare for everyone on board's fiery demise. The terrorist detonated his device and it exploded according to plan. But in a shocking and admittedly kind of hilarious turn of events, he blew a hole. Not everyone is fortunate to have the baseline level of common sense you and I take for granted. The metal object in question was a rusty cylinder that looked something like this, which even at first glance should have begun to ring a few alarm bells in his head. But those alarm bells remained silent, and the air was soon filled with other noises instead. First, the sound of metal on metal, as he took the object back to his home workshop and gave it an investigatory whack with his hammer. Then, the sound of an explosion, because the object he found and proceeded to hammer was a very old, but still very much active, bombshell from a past battle on Romanian soil. With all the grace and documentary about an Indian guru who allegedly survived for 70 years consuming no food, living off sunlight alone, the woman decided to try her hand at the challenge. Now, you might be thinking, but what if the documentary was lying? And you'd be right to do so, because that tale was almost certainly little more than a myth, or at the very least, an exaggeration, as the whole idea goes against every shred of evidence biological science presents us with. But what does science matter when you have faith, right? Well, that's the viewpoint this woman adopted, and she decided to stop eating and drinking altogether. When that proved too tough, she began drinking water again, but continued to resist food. After a few weeks of the practice, she was found in her apartment, dead of starvation. It shouldn't need to be said, but no matter how much you believe otherwise, the human body needs food to keep living. Once your body runs out of food, it begins digesting itself. Eventually, this stops the vital organs from functioning, and death soon follows. If there's a legitimate way to get around it, the scientific world is yet to see compelling evidence of it. One thing that is certain, though, is that this Swiss woman's death was a failed attempt to make a somewhat pointless statement. But just check out their claws. Scary, right? Well, it's those 4-inch-long claws that make up the focal point of this next tale of one man's unfortunate, yet avoidable, demise. While cassowaries are certainly fascinating to look at, they're known for being incredibly territorial. This is something one Florida man should have been aware of, considering he bred them on his property near Gainesville. But for reasons unknown, one day the breeder let his guard down while walking in the enclosure housing one of his cassowaries. In a stroke of misfortune, he fell. Letting your guard down even once can be a death sentence. But on the other hand, I would argue that killed by a living dinosaur is a pretty cool thing to have on your gravestone. Digging an early grave. You don't need to look far on the internet to see examples of people with dangerous jobs throwing all safety measures to the wind. Like this guy, who successfully completed his digging unharmed in spite of his very unstable-looking DIY support beams. Or this genius, whose choice of propping tools are one sudden movement away from crumbling like breadsticks, with a side of crushed human for dipping. Not everyone is so lucky, however, and it turns out the most dangerous type of support beam is none at all. That was precisely the construction style chosen by one man in 2018 when he decided to dig a tunnel into a sand dune at a beach in St. Augustine, Florida. He wormed his way several feet into the side of the sand dune and seemed to be having fun. Until his unsupported makeshift tunnel suddenly collapsed on him. The collapse covered him in several feet of sand, suffocating him, and the sudden shock triggered a fatal heart attack, finishing him off. And that, folks, is why even these types of support beams are better than none at all when it comes to digging yourself out of or into trouble. Reptile road trip. No matter how many people fall victim to agonizing and often fatal bites, people just don't seem to get the message to not mess with snakes. like the bizarre Indian trend of snapping selfies with cobras, or this Florida man whose decision to kiss a venomous water moccasin temporarily turned his face into a marshmallow. But even those folks are basically Einstein-level geniuses compared to one man from the Kuala Lumpur district of Malaysia who took a wild python for a motorcycle ride in January 2018. Having passed the 11-foot-long reptiles. Thanks for watching.
Char booty, it's just me. Char booty booty, juicy juicy, juicy booty, booty booty.
Have you given much thought to the water you shower in? The truth.
People are dumb. So dumb that many accidentally remove themselves from the gene pool in the most idiotic ways possible. I mean, there's so many. We're on part 12 of this series now, and there's still no end in sight. With that said, let's get right to the good stuff and take a look at even more Darwin Award winners and people who ended themselves in the dumbest ways imaginable. Permanent bedhead. Strange, the whole thing flipped off as soon as the driver put their foot on the gas. The mattress hit the road, and so did our unlucky lady. I'm happy to say the mattress bounced back. Our mattress surfer, on the other hand, didn't. Struck speechless. Road rage ain't no joke, but it can have some pretty funny consequences if the events of September 12, 2021 are anything to go by. At 1:30 a.m. on this Sunday morning, two drivers collided on the I-80 in California. Instead of taking their argument off to the side of the road, the drivers decided to commence arguing in the middle of the traffic lanes. In the early morning, they must have idiotically assumed that no one but them would be using the road, and they were dead wrong. A few minutes later, both men were struck by an oncoming car and were found unresponsive at the scene. That's certainly one way to park an argument. Scrap idea. There are plenty of safe things you can source scrap metal